this session, obviously, you guys, we have all come with our own individual thoughts about our own operations, projects, bakeries, communities. But then there is also this thing which is the movement, the bigger thing that when we all come together that happens. The lovely lady I spoke to in the break just now who said, I love that so many people have come, and that we both agreed there's this real sense of big conversation happening. The sound of you all speaking upstairs just warmed my heart so much. It's fabulous. And when you go in and out of each of the conversations, everything was so interesting. We all wanted to be in all of those. So we have come together. What is it that we should be doing next? What is the future of Real Bread? What help do you need to make your work amplify? I was saying to somebody else today that I think that's Sustain's job, the charity that is hosting the Real Bread campaign. It is our job to amplify the good work of people doing good things in terms of health, community, mental health, sustainability, social enterprise, all the good stuff that we'd like to see happening. How can we help amplify that, but not in a top-down way? How can we all help to amplify that? What should we be doing together to make it all better and better? So, joining me on the stage, fantastic people who are doing fantastic things. I will ask you to introduce yourself as well. But if I'd like you as the audience to be thinking about some things that have really struck you today, so that any questions, any comments really are about that thoughts towards the future. So we're not now talking about how to fix particular issues to do with salt, lard, whatever it is we were talking about in the last session. If you're beginning to not be able to hear, please nudge us to be louder or put your hand up and say, look, can you repeat that question? It's absolutely fine. Can I ask people to introduce themselves? Andrew, do you want to have another go, or you're all right now?
They're going to be fed up with me anyway, so
No, they're not going to be fed up with you.
Who's he? Who's he?
No.
Hi, I'm Emma Borbely from the Lantern community, the Lantern Bakery in Ringwood, just on the Ringwood sort of Dorset border. And we work with adults with a learning disability in a bakery and 8 other workshops that are on site.
Do you want to move yourself a little bit closer to that?
I can.
I'll move yourself a bit back.
I'm Jess. I'm from a bakery in Liverpool called Homebaked. We're a cooperative. We're in quite a working class area in Anfield, right opposite Liverpool Football Club. And we set up about 2 years ago, and I'm the baker there. I'm a co-founder, and that's us.
Fantastic, thank you.
My name's Chris Young. I'm the tea boy.
No, stop that. Tell us all what you really do.
And I coordinate the Real Bread campaign as well.
Thank you. It's very hard to get this guy to take a round of applause, but the amount of work he puts into making all of this a success, I would just like to add to that. Thank you very much. So 2 people who can't join us on this panel, but apologies, was Zig from the Leeds Bread Co-op and Fran Barker, who runs work with Manchester ex-offenders. So apologies, because obviously their input would be fantastic too. Does anybody of you lot want to start off by saying something that has really struck you today? Some big thought about where things are going, either for your own work or for your sector, the type of work that you represent, or that a conversation you've had that you've gone, oh, that's really interesting. Can I jump on somebody? Would you mind?
I suppose the thing that I've kind of taken away from myself most from today was that that we need to be the change. And I suppose what I got for myself is we don't shout enough about it within the work that we do in the Lantern Bakery, about the bread that we bake and why we bake the way we do. We just do. We've just always done it that way. And so it's just, that's the way we always done things, so we always do. And I think Anfield traditionally, since it was founded in the 50s, has always baked good bread, and that's always been a really important part of what we've done. And because we've always done it, we don't shout about it. And so what I've got from today for me to take away back to my colleagues in the bakery is we need to shout about this a bit more, because we're not. We're just doing it every day. And it's amazing what we're doing, but maybe we're just not shouting enough about it. And if we can individually be the change and maybe just pass that on, then things change, don't they?
I can hear
from
the
small seeds.
Exactly, I can hear the kind of murmurs that I can feel that people are saying, yeah, that's me too, yeah. Chris?
I think that's probably better than I could have said, frankly. Yes, we all know we're doing the right thing and why we're doing it. And often, especially people who are full-time bakers, you're so busy and working such crappy hours in there, head down, doing what you're doing, that you don't have time to step outside and say, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it. And hiding, not blowing one's own trumpet enough. And that's understandable because you're baking bloody good bread. So that is the most important thing, obviously, is baking good, real bread to start with. But then telling the stories behind it. I was listening to the marketing session earlier. And marketing is a dirty word, but it shouldn't be. There are so many things we can learn from the big players who are having to make up stories and having to bullshit, basically. You've got good, honest stories. Please tell them. And maybe that's one of the things that comes out of today that we, Sustain, can help with, is helping tell those stories.
Thank you.
I think that we're proud that we make the bread that we make, and and it's simple, good, nutritional value within that bread. But it'd be good to get the people buying the bread, who are eating the bread, to also be proud of what they're buying and allow them to kind of, understand really that this has just got nothing in it that can harm you. What you've got, what you're used to, is something that is actually quite harmful maybe. But just educating people to make them proud, as to allow people on a wider spectrum, not just producers, to maybe be a part of the Real Bread campaign. They don't have to make the bread, but they can be a part of the Real Bread campaign even if they don't make it. Say, I'm proud to be a part of supporting this, even if I'm not a producer, or even if I'm not, everyone. So customers and everyone maybe could be a part of it and have an input.
Sorry to jump back in at that point, just made me think of something that we can all do, is the industrial loaf products out there, please stop using the word bread. All of us. The number of times I hear someone say plastic bread or cotton wool bread, take the word bread away. Call it what it is. It's an industrial loaf. Don't dignify it with the word bread, even if you qualify it with a disparaging remark. Stop calling it bread, full stop. It's an industrial product. We've got bread. At the moment, we're having to call it real bread. We shouldn't have to put the qualifier real in there. We should be the people saying, this is bread, that's your problem, what you call it.
Very good. I promise to do that. Yeah, Andrew. Something that struck you.
Can I sort of slightly change the rubric?
Oh,
because,
all right.
because so many things have struck me that I could go on too long about them, but it's more of a sort of note to self, actually, that's been occurring to me, and that is that there's so much phenomenal goodwill and I think basic agreement among us about the direction that we're going in, that the note to self is don't be too shrill, don't sound too much as though we have all the answers, because actually our bread making method and everything that we do in the Real Bread campaign is based on something rather different than an assertion that that this is a linear process in which you start with ingredients, you end up with an answer in the form of a finished product. We're much more about engaging in a process, creating the right conditions, whether they be in the soil or in the fermentation medium or in the context of the bakery, the baking we do and the reaching of customers, creating the conditions in which health can pass through the system and be reliably the result, which I take to be the fundamental, if you like, insight of those people who we talk about as the founders of the organic movement. But really they were just profound thinkers, I think, who saw that if we try and boss nature, boss the biosphere and plunder it for raw materials without putting anything back, without even bothering to understand the subtle interactions of the processes involved, then we may well get cheap and productive results for a while, but ultimately that's at a great cost, not just to the resources of the world and the energy balance and all that kind of thing, but actually cost to ourselves in terms of leading ourselves up a garden path of false understanding, if you like. So while I profoundly believe that, I also kind of want to be sure that asserting that is not saying that I have all the answers, indeed remaining open to the possibility that there will always be other contributory answers and ways of doing this which will achieve that ultimate aim that we so passionately believe in.
Fabulous. Many of people in the audience being the channeling of that, all of your skills and all of the communities you reach into. Would anybody else like to say something about what's really struck you today? Would you mind standing up when you say it?
I think it's been brilliant to start. Thank you very much for that. The one thing that struck me is really just what Andrew's saying. And I think we've got a whole group of people here that can go out and do a lot of things to change things. And this thing with the Act and things like the definitions of sourdough and things like that.
The Honest Crust Act, you mean? Do you mean the Honest Crust Act? Yeah.
And labelling and all that sort of stuff. I think we've got a whole group of people here that we could harness and go out as foot soldiers for the campaign. I think we probably could do some more of the campaign type of things as well as doing the just going out there and selling real bread. And I think the other thing that I've noticed as well, and maybe something to very much bear in mind, and maybe they've noticed as well, is that we communicate with our customers each week by email, something out order form and a newsletter, and in that we are sort of slowly giving the messages of the campaign. And it's amazing how many of those people that are coming back saying they put things online and they become consultants as well. And from that, we've probably got hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people that we could try and get something done about this pseudo and whatever else.
Fantastic, thank you. Somebody else would like to.
Sorry, is there a time for a little public notice which I can say too?
If you can stand up and direct it to the audience so they can hear.
I am a member of a small charity called Friends of Crescent Temple, and if any of you here is from Essex, now we would love to hear from you because we are looking for somebody to help us to bring to life a old oven. And that's precisely the point, because we are having an upper day on the 4th of October where we want to bring local producers to people who make things. And so if there is a baker from area of east of London onwards, please get in touch with us.
So we could make a commitment to push that out through the Real Bread Network after this meeting.
If we have a real baker there, actually getting some message out about real bread.
Fantastic. What we'll do is, if we can make sure that Chris gets information about that.
Yeah, everyone's welcome to that. Everyone who's a Real Bread campaign supporter, which by the end of today I'm sure all of you will be. We've got the Real Bakery is our forum, and just for that sort of thing is, hello, I'm here, who's with me, I want this, I'm offering that. Get in there, post that sort of offer or that question in there, please.
Yeah, so talk to Chris if there's something like that that needs to get out. More hands I was seeing going up. Can you stand up when you say and direct it to as much of the audience as possible? Thank you.
I'm Miss Kimball. One of the things I've thoroughly enjoyed about today is, and incredibly you know this, I've had more hugs and kisses and hellos of people who I've been chatting to on social media, some of them for 6 and 7 years. And it's an absolute thrill to meet people and put faces to people's names. And well, two things. One, I'd love to do this more often, guys. Sorry, Chris, I don't know what you're. Secondly, that online community that we have through the Twitter account has been a real lifeline to me at times, because I have felt isolated. There have been times when I felt like the only union in the village was going on about real bread. And I think that social media support that we give to each other, and even if you think that somebody is in competition to you, there's another teacher, there's another bakery, we're not in competition. I think what I've just realised is, I don't know what the population of the UK is, but it's got to be about 66 million people. There are about, you can probably tell me the figures, with 12 million names being made, numbers like that going out. There are enough people out there eating really terrible factory-produced loaves for everybody to support each other. We're not in competition, we're in it together.
That's a really good point. Thank you very much. Thank you. Fantastic. I was going to say I've got a lady up there, but I happen to know she's called Veronica. Veronica.
She's called Veronica.
Yes. And on that note, that Chris said to me before we came on, that the idea that we would get together more often and feed each other both with good food and good ideas is a very good idea in its own right. So there might be a call to all of you to say, where should we do that next? You might have a venue you have access to. Perhaps we should be in Leeds or Edinburgh or Truro. I'm picking those out there because I happen to have looked at the list of where you're all from. Where should we be meeting next? Think about it. Talk to Chris, because we should be getting together more, because this is where the ferment happens. And then we don't have to have hashtags to keep in touch with each other and feel isolated.
Yeah, let me know where you're organising it and I'll help you promote it and I'll help get... No, seriously, I've organised one here. There's no reason that other people can't organise one locally. It doesn't have to be of this scale. I'm afraid the next one that I can think of is in London, but someone is. Ben McKinnon, E5 Bakehouse, they've got one next month.
Yes.
So pop along to that, have a check at his website. I know that the guys from Real Bread Ireland have had at least a couple already, and I help them promote those. So let me know what you're doing, even if it's just a room full of 20 people above a pub one day, and I'll see if I can help get more people along there.
Fantastic.
And hopefully I'll be able to come and join you as well myself, because these are fun. Next time I'll actually get to join in.
Feels like starting up all over the country. More comments. Gentleman right at the back. Could you stand up to...
Yeah, my name's Kieran. It's really an idea of kind of second front of the campaign, really. I'll tell you a bit about my story. I make real bread, teach people how to make it. But 3 years ago I was diagnosed with celiac disease, so I can't eat it anymore.
Oh.
But what I've noticed, having now gone through the whole process of trying to eat free bread, is that the industrial producers have now just switched their focus to gluten-free, and they're charging massive amounts of money for an absolute product of bread. A lot of people, I think, if you worked in conjunction, say, Celiac UK, want to get hold of good gluten-free real bread. And I just think it's an idea to maybe investigate.
Thank you.
Yeah. I've contacted Celiac UK, and everything you need to know about it I've told you already. Nothing.
If anybody's got any good contacts in Celiac UK, of people who
I've
we
said
should be
let's
talking
work
to,
together. Not interested.
Yeah, we can wear them down.
But I'm happy to carry on knocking, so if anyone knows any other doors in, brilliant.
Hello.
Don't be so cynical, Chris, because there are some really good bakers in the Real Bread campaign who do...
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
They are worth speaking to, because they have tried and tested the recipes, they've published them, other people read from them. And I think if
Yeah.
you get no
Absolutely.
response from CLUK, focus on the basics.
Yeah.
Good point. Well made. Thank you. We might have some other people in the firing line first, so... Could you stand up if you're going to make a comment from the back? Sorry.
Everybody puts a slice of their gluten-free bread in an envelope and post it.
Postage advice from Julia at the back. That's good. Gemma, you were sort of coming back on all some of those things. I thought
No, I haven't got anything to say at the moment.
That's fine, that's fine. More comments about things that have struck you today, about what we could be doing together. Julia.
Today is what an incredible resource it's been, and everyone here with your experience. So many sort of little questions about the science of bread, or what works when you do this and that. So many little questions that I've always wondered about, and also the experience of the different levels of data tools like therapeutic and microwave. So I've been really struck by the resource that we are to each other.
We all get a house together.
Been there, done that.
We'd only argue about cleaning the toilet. Can we have a quick one, because we've got some other people as well?
Following on from an incredible resource, I'm not sure at what level, and I'm probably going to put the cat and the pigeons here. I'd love to see a real bread book from us, from a real bread
It's coming out next September.
It's coming out next September. We'll have information about that to follow.
I'm about to say something, but I don't really know what it is I'm saying, so just bear with me on it. There's a new online resource that we in the NHS are using called Confluence Wiki. Anybody know about that?
No.
Because I'm meant to know about it. But it's really, I don't know. Anyway, why don't you Google that, because that's a really good, so I'm told,
Okay.
Okay, we'll have a look. Confluence Wiki. I never thought I'd write that down. Confluence Wiki. Where we... We'll take a look at it. We'll have a sniff around.
Thank you.
I think with all of the things that we try and offer on a technical basis, we try and make sure that they're as open as possible, accessible as possible, all of those things. So we'll have a look at it with that in mind. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and some of them are also phones and conferences and things in a traditional way, not to go down the technology. There was a very nice comment I got in one of the breaks is when we were talking about what is a hashtag. It came as a joke from the lovely gentleman in the audience before. Somebody came up and said, well, it's the mark we make in the top of sourdough.
Hi, I'm Lucy from Liverpool, and I just wanted to ask about, going back to the health question, are we doing any engagement with health practitioners, etc.? Because, for example, in Liverpool, the CCG there is making a real commitment to actually spending money on prevention rather than fixing things. So they're looking at supporting, creating community bakeries and getting people out and doing things like that. I know that's something Liverpool's doing. Is there room for looking at that? Because another thing that's been highlighted to me is that in medical schools, for example, they don't teach food and nutrition. So is there also a way of being able to go and talk to those doctors, talk to the people who are advising people to say to them, you should be eating real bread, this is what you should be buying, this is what you should be eating?
Fantastic. I should say that this lady is working with partly as part of the Sustainable Food Cities Network, which is attempting to get partnerships of local organisations to take health seriously through food. Bread hasn't played a massive role in that so far, but I think it should. And we should, because you've already made inroads with that, it would be fantastic to share your experience of that more widely with anybody who wants to engage at that kind of policy level, but locally. I was just going to come to Andrew about the health research that you're involved with, perhaps on the digestibility side. Were you interested in saying something about that? How long have we got?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could report more. I've been trying to work with some gastroenterologists. Yeah. It's that little tot that Alison gave me at lunchtime, actually. Where is she?
You're trying to sabotage.
At King's College London, the idea was to take the same flour, bake it into bread in different ways at different lengths of fermentation time and see if it made a difference. And obviously there's lots of variables, but we tried to iron them out and to get some initial pointers through a fairly basic in vitro study so that we could then raise a lot of money needed to do a feeding trial. The idea would be that you'd make effectively get a Chorleywood bread processed loaf and a sourdough loaf made with the same flour so that at least you'd got that, and you'd have to deal with the additives and so on in a particular kind of way to avoid that being the major confounding factor. But essentially we'd be looking at how the effect of eating that bread on inappropriate fermentation in the lower gut, the bloating thing, but also the source of much concern to gastroenterologists. And the initial study that we did it has been published in PLOS One, which is an open source academic resource, and it showed that there were indeed differences between the fast-made bread and the sourdough bread. We clearly need to do this on a much bigger scale and to do more of it. But without that research, then we have to fall back on sort of analogues and suggestions that it's, because other things happen when you ferment bread properly, then it stands to reason that it would be better for the human digestive system and so on and so forth. So that is something that we're definitely trying to do, but it needs mega bucks, and it's not something that the campaign can make any kind of contribution to because it doesn't have any money. So I suppose the call would be to people to perhaps be aware of this, and if you know of anybody who is interested in perhaps contributing towards funding. We have approached some medium-sized or even large-scale bakeries who are trying to do some real bread within supermarkets and so on, or for supermarkets. But it's a little bit edgy for them because it potentially runs counter to some of their sponsors or their clients' most deeply held beliefs and commercial interests. So.
Money that we as a campaign can raise to fund that research area? Is it sort of money that we
did
crowdsource and fund that kind of information? That would be amazing.
Well, we did look at the possibility of crowdfunding it a couple of years ago, and we had an initial small contribution from a sympathetic benefactor, but it's nothing like, we're talking about £300,000 to £400,000 for a crossover feeding trial with proper protocols and peer review and all the rest of it. So, that's a heck of a lot of money to raise.
It would be interesting in that
crowdfunding.
context to hear the sorts of arguments that work with health people. Are you talking about perhaps the mental health side of things, or the enterprise and jobs side of things, or the all of that?
It's not treading on toes. I think the University of Liverpool's Bioscience Department would be really interested in having a chat with you, and I can put you in touch with someone to have a word with them about that. We're looking at the moment at sourcing funding through Europe, through the Interreg and Horizon 2020 funds, working with other cities and looking at ways in which we can bring money in to do exactly that kind of research project. So please have a chat with me after.
Thank you. Just to jump in, that's exactly the sort of thing on the feedback forms you've got. There's a bit at the bottom of what can you do, not what the campaign can do for you, what can you do for the campaign. And that sort of contact and that sort of idea and that sort of offer, brilliant, stick it down and we'll look into it, because we are certainly looking at very much the mental health side of things. But if there's the demand there, if that's what comes out of the feedback that we should be looking more at the physical health side of things, then let's go down that route. That's part of what today's about, is where should we be going.
Fantastic. If you're making comment from the floor, could you stand up? Because not.
They fund medical research on a lot more or less nebulous grounds. They pour millions and millions into just a very tiny different strain of aspirin. Surely there's, I don't know the UK system, but I know in Dublin, the medical research is tapped quite a lot into the Wellcome Trust. And surely there's somebody just needs a bit of this, making them charge millions out of it.
Are you offering? Interesting, the Wellcome Trust also bought most of the co-op's farms, so we could perhaps persuade them to plant some wheat on them. It's always possible. This gentleman here who's been waiting patiently.
Hi. I'm trying to change my bakery to get rid of the white flour and introduce 81% in wholemeal. I want to get into heritage grains, biodynamic, and so I look out for special needs. What about all these other bakers? Some organic bakers are using white flour. There's no nutritional value in there. How are we going to get? We need to educate our taste. We need to. It's like white flours taste nice, and kids like it, but as adults we need to educate ourselves. Wholemeal sourdough is a real adult taste. And I love a white croissant. I really have to force myself to go for the wholemeal. It does taste nice, but how are we going to develop our taste and educate the population and introduce heritage grains wholemeal? I'm struggling making a really nice wholemeal loaf with flour, water and salt. The acid crush, it's very difficult. But if we use the forum, to exchange ideas, it's like gluten-free as well.
As two practitioners in real bread, you've got comments on how what that would look like for you?
For me, I don't know, it's on like a really base level. For me, I struggle in the bakery where I work to get even the sourdough, an interest going around the sourdough. People want the staples, so for me that's kind of a difficulty. I can make a wholesome loaf, but unfortunately it's not the sourdough, it's white. And I'm not ashamed to say it because people enjoy it, and it goes back to telling people what they can and can't eat. That's not my responsibility. We have to produce what there's a demand for and what people like, and we can make it as good as we can. I can't say. So for me, it's really difficult to say. what to do with that.
It feels like an evolutionary kind of idea. Have you got some thoughts about that as well?
I'm not a baker.
No.
I'm not able to comment, sorry.
That's fine.
I probably said my piece on this earlier and don't want to take up any more of your time, but I would just say that while I understand what you mean by saying that sourdough is an adult taste, I know lots of Russian and East European children who actually are brought up eating sourdough, rye bread, and who regard that as normal bread. So these things are embedded in our culture, and I think the problem about saying we're going to give the public what it wants, I said that was earlier in my talk, that's the sort of the excuse for developing things, whether they be broadcasting or newspapers or bread of mediocre quality, because it doesn't offend anybody. But you've got to actually unpick the politics of that and say, you know, by acceding to that apparent demand or preference for that bread, in the absence of the knowledge of what it does or doesn't contain, then we're colluding in a kind of deception. And I think it's not too great not too big a word to say, you know, a kind of continued enslavement of people to a certain cultural norm, which if it's at odds with their health requirements and their well-being, is cruel. It's not right, and it's certainly unjust. And so, you know, it's not good enough to say, oh, well, they say they like white bread, therefore it's my obligation to produce it, without at least exchanging information about my knowledge of what there is in that white flour, whether it be the absence of nutrients or additives that are included at the milling stage or whatever it may be. And, you know, therefore I say, I raised that suggestion that perhaps something we could do is to get some of our energies behind the notion that we could argue for, lobby for a definition of minimum nutritional standards for wheat and flour, which we could work to. You know, could challenge millers to adjust their milling technology to leave a bit more in, without taking the flour so far away from what is currently offered that it's unacceptable to many people, and then to rationally, every now and then, look at those standards and say, could we do better? Could we do more? You know, and engage everybody in the knowledge that that flour is genuinely better, and because it's got more left in it. In other words, various interests have not nicked it all before it gets to you in the toaster or the sandwich. It's a matter of theft and justice.
But I would just say that if you could advise me on how I could start to increment that and do that, because obviously I don't want it at the cost of the whole bakery, not have anyone buying any bread. So it's a really difficult, I struggle because of especially where we are in Liverpool and the place where we are. I really struggle with that being my responsibility. I'm thinking I have the right to do that. I think I'd love to do it, but it's not. It's kind of like, how do you start that process of saying, I know what's good, how do I tell you that? I don't know. It's just a really difficult
That
thing
sounds
to
like a
do.
very big conversation that we should be having, is partly how do we work on the taste. Is it about marketing? Because, I mean, 30 years ago, no one had a mobile phone. And it's like the idea that I knew someone with a mobile phone was called a posh. I was about to say something rude there. Because you had a landline and you just, you know, only certain people have those phones, and now everybody has a mobile phone. And who on earth convinced us that that was necessary? Who on earth convinced us that we didn't need a laptop, we needed a tablet? Yeah, that was marketing. We didn't need a tablet. Now they're indispensable, and how on earth did I live without this? So there might be something that we can learn again from the big players, but I think it's a very big conversation, but a very useful one.
A very brief anecdote in that I spoke to somebody from the Department of Health about 10 years ago who was not at all of the opinion that anything should be done at government level to promote 5 a day. And now, of course, that's kind of common parlance, even if we're still not managing to make it. But the response she had from me saying that we should be doing something at policy level and in lots of projects in schools was, we can't do that, we'd have to change culture. I thought, and I had to be restrained, because I was saying, that's your job, yes, there's a lady here. Could you stand up, sorry, again?
I know that's a huge, but if there's a rough thing, like, you would say, you might already know this.
No, I don't. And I wish I had the answer to that to give you, actually. The nearest I've got to it is to ask trading standards what a stone miller, a sort of traditional stone miller, or anyone else milling in a simple way without roller mills, what they would have to do to avoid putting the compulsory fortificants into their white or light flour, because there is verifiably more left in when you mill on stones and then sift flour rather than roller mill and refine. So the question is, we don't yet know, but we should be asking for some of these simple rules of thumb to help us, even as we also ask questions about how we can raise those minimum standards and get them agreed as minimum standards, because then that will gradually feed back into the milling and the baking, the farming and the plant breeding arena, because at the moment everybody is pulling in the wrong direction, taking bits out and not worrying about the consequences, whereas if everyone had an obligation to meet those standards through light flours, then the plant breeders would have to start doing something more about it. And a lot does depend on wheat variety and so on, and soil type and all that kind of stuff. So it gets seemingly rather complicated, but that's nature, that's life, that's the way it is. And if we don't pay attention to these things, then we'll get what we deserve, really, which is allowing the market to sort it all out. And
perhaps we should set our own standard at some level as well, and say crowdsourcing it in some way, but also be proud of something that we're all moving forward with that would help you to increment something.
One of the things we're going to do in Scotland the Bread is to create a round table in Scotland of public health nutritionists and people like that, and the plant breeders and the farmers and everybody round the table saying, let's make a stab at how much of this and this it should contain. And it sounds terribly reductionist, the amount of calcium per 100 grams or whatever, but actually in the round this is about moving those standards from the current situation of complete ignorance and invisibility into something where we can then revisit them every now and then in the light of our new understandings about the importance of this or that to good health, because the current fortificants were put in there because the state of knowledge coming out of the 1930s was that if you didn't have enough calcium, you got rickets, and there were people on the streets with rickets, visible to people. Now that is a condition which is actually reappearing, according to the public health, the doctors now, in a rather shocking way. Not visible, perhaps, but certainly out there, along with all our other health-related issues. So we need to start somewhere, and it's not going to be a perfect standard. It's going to be deeply contested, but I'm sure we can get a starting point, and some of us will not feel that it's terribly satisfactory. Others will feel that it's an enormous imposition and damn regulation, and we should tear it all up and allow the free market to do everything. But I know which side of that aspiration I stand. I want to make the attempt to get public agreement, and the goodwill of organisations like this and bodies like this is a very good thing that we can sort of put out there as evidence of the willingness of people to actually engage in the conversation. We want better standards for flour, we the public, as it were, and armed with that and the attempt to do that, like a campaign, we can then go and maybe square some of these problems about making light bread and say, this is a whole lot better because we've kind of worked it out, and we've got all the best brains around the table, and it's heading in the right direction. It's getting better, rather than just staying there in this kind of limbo of official, I would say, dereliction of duty. Because one of the things that I didn't mention in my talk, sorry, I am going to stop shortly, is that it's been widely recognised for a long time by government scientists that the form of iron which is put into this white flour is almost completely non-available to the human body. And there are forms of iron that you can supplement with, but the millers won't use them, and they haven't been asked to either, because they give a slight taint to the flour, and they're more difficult to disperse into the flour. Now, I would call that dereliction of duty, public incompetence. If you know that something which is going in as a fortificant on health grounds is actually ineffective, what is that? If we were doing that in another sphere, knowing that, you know, a safety device that we installed in an aeroplane or a car was actually ineffective, we'd be strung up. You know, our honours would be stripped off us. We'd be kicked out of the House of Lords or whatever.
Andrew and I sat for several years on a standards committee, so we are known as the nerds of the food world, but he also managed to bring me to tears many times with lots and lots of food puns at the same time. So a lot of fun can also be had in the standards setting, is what I think I'm saying. I'm going to come, there was 4 people at the back, but I would like to come first to the people who haven't spoken yet, and the lady I cut off before in the previous session. Can I come to you? Do you want to stand up if you're going to say something? Thank you.
I just want to add, I'm from Switzerland originally, and I grew up on completely different kind of bread. This was more of a brown white bread, but it always had a crust. You had to bite into it, and it's good for your bite, it's good for children to bite into something. I remember I came to England when I was 17, and we went out on a picnic, and there was a stack of white bread, and they started cutting it diagonally this way, and then this way, and then they cut the crust off. Honestly, I cannot eat that kind of bread because I grew up on something different. So I'm thinking...
You grew up on bread. You're talking about that white industrial stuff again. Not bread, and it's not got a crust, it's got a skin.
What I love about Chris, he can use language.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, it is a cultural thing. It's the way you grow up. You go to bacon and train people to eat differently. It's also you can't have a pumpernickel bread with some delicate smoked salmon, oat smoke or whatever. It's not going to match together. There's also what you eat with that bread. And I think maybe reaching out to healthy food and combining the bread, I don't know, the bread campaign with other healthy food. And I'm teaching people to eat this, the croissant you can eat with a hot chocolate, I've explained to you, you dip it in, it's all solid, but this bread is for something different. And educate, instead of having white against brown, just educate, there's a whole variety. Like variety, why don't you eat this or that, and I don't know.
Methods of culture change. Oh, yes. I'm there. Gentleman there. Thank you.
David Morton, the bulk of my work at the moment is in travel and tourism, and kind of leading on that. I'm just wondering, and probably Chris is the best person to respond to this, have we had any, I'm a member also of CAMRA, and I think there's parallels there between real ale and industrial lager, and real bread, and industrial loaves. How much have we explored that up to now, and what kind of synergy is that? So, you know, again, pitching people, hey, here's a fantastic pub that serves real cask-conditioned ale. They also, their sandwiches are made from fantastic real bread from this great local bakery. I think there might be, and I've got, I don't know how many people in the room have it on their phone, but there's a great, the Good Beer Guide that I download here when I want to find the pub that has real ale. Could we do something similar, a real bread guide?
Got it.
Yeah, great idea. I mean, CAMRA is basically what inspired the Real Bread campaign in the first place. It was exactly the analogy you're using. You've got something white, bland, industrial with no living anything in it, and forget the people who make it. Let's just make things in a big factory and as bland and as uniform as possible. So that was what inspired the campaign. But yes, we can learn a lot from CAMRA. They've got, 130,000 members. We've got, a few thousand supporters, so we certainly have got a long way to go. CAMRA campaign for Real Ale are actually members of Sustain. And we
had a campaign for a while, actually, didn't they?
And yeah, we've had meetings with them. So yeah, I'm sure we can learn a lot more. Kath's written it down. Thank you. Yes.
I've written the word platform with a
we do have a real bread finder as a base level. We've got a real bread finder map on the website, so bakers are able to add their real bread to that as a starting point. But we'll look into that.
We'll explore that. Thank you. Any comments coming back? Because I'm very aware that the whole side of that we've discussed today around therapeutic baking, reaching out to people with physical and mental health needs, you've raised it a little bit. Is there any questions or comments around that, or that things that you wanted to say more about what we could be doing more with a national movement to help the kind of work that you do?
I think it came up in our discussion group, the first one this morning, that there would be some value in us coming together as a group of people who are doing that work, so therapeutic work, and those people coming together. I said conference, maybe that sounds very grand, but a meeting of people to kind of share good practice and just to kind of meet and talk a bit more, because, yeah, time was so short this morning. But I think, so there is that kind of feeling, certainly from that group that we were in this morning, that there would be some benefit in that group of people meeting together again and yeah, sharing ideas. Yeah.
Very good idea. It struck me as well, because the last time I was in this room chairing a conference, it was about how food-growing enterprises, the sort of community food-growing people, could be getting more commissioned work from clinical commissioning groups and could shape up what they were doing in order to look good to the health service, and at the same time the health service understanding the needs of those enterprises. So it strikes me that there's a lot we can share from that food-growing stuff, which probably will translate very well, and I suspect that you might be very useful to have in that conversation. So I'm going to park that there a bit. That was very helpful. Is there any other people who would like to comment or make thoughts about the sort of therapeutic side of things?
Just one, sorry.
So there's a gentleman at the back who wanted to...
Just to say, I think I tried to...
Can you stand up again, sorry?
When the campaigns and research on this came out on mental and therapeutic health, I tried to get this to... I worked for the local authority and public health were there, I tried to get this in front of them. And then, because there wasn't really anybody that really understood bread and baking, it didn't happen. I'm just intrigued and interested about what you said about it is happening in Liverpool. If they are seeing it, one thing I'm absolutely clear on, because in my own work we're trying to get the health churches involved, is they are absolutely on the money with regard to evidence-based initiatives. So if there's anything you can share with us about why Liverpool Health Service is taking it on, I think that would be very helpful.
It sounds like there is a whole conversation for us to think about perhaps organising Liverpool, I don't know. And also there was a lovely lady I met earlier, I apologise I can't see you in the audience, but who worked for a social housing organisation who'd done a lot of that kind of work as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be local authority as a target, it could be other people who commission that kind of work as well. There was somebody down at the front, lady who wanted to...
During the conversation on the therapeutic baking, I think what came quite strongly that people implied that therapeutic baking, because it's baking, so perhaps baking for well-being or something more positive would be less patronising for people who might experience some difficulty in their lives. And they don't really need therapy, they just need to be involved and be part of something. So perhaps rethink, representing the term of therapeutic baking.
I am needing to draw this to a close because we're coming towards the end and we've still got some time. There's one gentleman who's been waiting and a lady who's been waiting for ages, I'm afraid, so I'm going to go to them as the final comment. Who wants to do a final comment? And then we're going to come back to the panel.
You said about meeting with the confidence. How are we going to do it? Because I'm going to go back to what they can, I'm going to forget everything. It's really difficult. How are we going to meet?
I'll just interrupt. So we've got a farm to learn event on the 25th of October, and we're talking about old varieties of grain. I was just thinking while we were talking here, we haven't got many farmers, I don't think, in the room. We haven't got very many millers, local bakers. And I feel like there's a growing need to try and bring all of those people together in a conversation. So the event is bringing owner and farmers and millers and bakers together. So just
And tell us what sorts of things your events might want to answer. We can either say that's the kind of thing we can do, essentially, or there's something that somebody else might like to pick up and run. There's a lady who's sitting next to you.
Yeah, just, one of the major...
Could you stand up? Sorry, it does really help with broadcasting.
One of the major things about today is the campaign is about more than just health. And if you look at the people that are in the room, there's a significant amount of micro-enterprises, either because they've already started doing training, they're already businesses, or because they're thinking about it or they've been on a small scale. I think that we're missing a trick a bit about concentrating too much on the
Yeah.
because it's a language that's understood by current policymakers more than almost any other. And it's also something about it's part of the whole food movement, which is changing the economic model so it's fit to build resilient, healthy societies, not just to make profit for the few. So it's a bigger narrative, and I would like to see that incorporated in the journey.
And I have to say, every time I've come in on an input from yourself when you were doing your sessions today, I thought, you fantastic, everything that you've been saying, so absolutely brilliant. Thank you. I'm going to have to adjust, yes. Yeah. Can I come back to the panel now? I'm sorry if I'm cutting off the conversation, but we are running slightly over time, and I want to respect everybody's time. Come back to you guys and say, again, what's something that you've heard perhaps from this session now that you might take back? What are you going to do that's different? You've talked about shouting more about it. But what will you do differently in the bit of work that you're doing, or that you might are reinvigorated to do even stronger?
Not make white bread. Because it's the devil. It's the devil. I feel evil now.
Increment.
Yeah, I think it's about educating without patronising, and it's about class. And I think bread, for me, since I've started, is a big class thing because it's a big political thing. And where I'm from, it's a working class part of Liverpool, and for me, it's really, it's a difficult place to educate without patronising. So it is about me, us incrementally doing it. But again, just really trying to make it as accessible as it possibly can be, so it's not this elite sort of clique that knows about real bread. It's everyone that knows about real bread actually understands what real bread means. Not to say that you've been eating crap all these years, you shouldn't be eating that. This is what is in a good loaf of bread, and that's what I've learned. I'm going to take away is just, this is better, full stop.
Lovely. And I really like what you said earlier about having the pride in what we eat. I think that these emotional words also help, the sense that, there's something really wonderful to buy into. Did you want to say something yourself about other ideas that have struck you for when you go back to your work?
What struck me is there going to be a period of time when real bread is going to become cool? At the moment, you talked about the 5 a day sort of coming now into the forefront. There's a big whole thing around sugar at the moment, the Jamie Oliver sugar rush thing, let's not eat sugar, it's so bad for us, that whole thing. I wonder, is there going to be a time when it's going to be cool to eat real bread?
Now.
Is it now? When is it now? Are we starting the revolution? I just wonder, is it starting? And is there going to be a point at which, we're going to be on the TV, or not we, but you guys who are baking it, shouting about it? Why is there not a kind of a whole real bread baking thing on the television? I don't know. Or a documentary about this is what you're eating and this is what you shouldn't be eating.
I've got a note to self in light of that, because we're working with Jamie Oliver on the sugar tax campaign, and my note to self is to get cross every time somebody uses the word carbohydrates. Because in the British Soft Drinks Association, who are the apologists for the sugary drink industry, keep on using the word carbohydrate to nick all the goodwill of bread, basically, so that it applies to sugary drinks with all the good stuff taken out. So that's my note to self, learning from you in language. Very important. Andrew?
So difficult to distill it down. That's
really mean, isn't it?
Yeah.
We'll carry on with you, obviously.
Very justified, very justified. I sum it up in the phrase, I need to understand how better to engage the outrage.
Ooh, that's nice. Yeah. I want a T-shirt with that one.
Yeah.
That's really should.
I think the face said it
all. Can I come
to
Chris? Sorry, we are running over now. Can I come to Chris, please? No comments about lardy bottoms, soggy bottoms, anything like that. Chris?
I wouldn't like to see Andrew on the Great British Bake Off because I know he'd hate it. And I wouldn't like to see such a lovely man so unhappy. All I can say is, yes, real bread is on the rise. This is just reaffirmed. I know why I'm doing the job that I'm doing. I'm here because, as Charlie said, you're going to go back, the bakers amongst you, heads down, poof. But there are lots of non-bakers in this room. There are lots of us who aren't actually professional bakers, and we've got the time to help guys like Charlie and the rest of the pros out there to say, right, okay, well, yeah, I've got a camera, I can do that, or I can write something, I can work with the local paper, I can organise a meeting, I own property, I can have, come round to mine and we'll have the next gig somewhere in a small town with 20 people rather than have to wait for Chris to do it. So, yeah, get out there and let me know what's going on.
Thank you. I am going to draw this to the close, but you will be very kind to let me say the thank yous because so many people have made this possible today. I want to thank Jane Savoury and Nena Chukwu, who's one of them is standing at the door, because you've been brilliant at looking after us. And Harry West, I can't see you in the audience anymore. Harry, is he still here? Probably not. But just to say that the SOAS Food Studies and Food and Anthropology course is an amazing kind of provocation to thinking, and we've learnt so much from him, and it's wonderful to have this hosted. I want to thank all of you volunteers who've been helping. Thank you very much today. I will add the phrase, bloody marvellous you are. And also to all the conversation leaders who've given up your day to trek from all over the country, all over the place. I've even got one person who's coming from Mexico to share your knowledge and experience. Fantastic. Very much to all of you. I hope you've understood that we really do mean everybody in this room. This is about sharing. This is about the ferment of ideas. To the Sustain team, the background people who do their year-round support for the Real Bread campaign and do all kinds of fantastic stuff. Andrew, for all of your inspiration. Thank you. Fabulous. And to Chris Young. Again, he wouldn't have been on this stage until we dragged him up because somebody wasn't here, but you are centre stage and you do fantastic work. You work so hard to make Real Bread a success, and you've turned ideas into action today. I do hope lots of ideas do ferment into action. If you could put some more of those ideas down on feedback forms, I offer a free hug to anybody who will do a feedback form, because it really does help. It also helps with us proving to all the supporters and funders who are not in this room that we're doing a work that people value, but also it helps us to think about what we should be doing next. And as you can tell, we're on the front foot. We want to do really good stuff. If I haven't thanked you and you feel you should have been, I apologise. But I also thank you on a personal note because I've had a reunion with somebody I used to work with 20 years ago or so in this room. I've had fabulous conversations all day and I had fantastic lunch. So thank you very much. We are meeting. Now the best bit of it all is that we are going to go to the pub afterwards. So it may not be a Camera Real pub. Apologies, because I'm a member of Camera as well. But we're going to the Marquis or Marquis of Cornwallis, which is in the Brunswick Centre. Our lovely volunteers know exactly where it is. Brunswick Centre is near Russell Square Tube Station if you need to look it up on one of your whizzy maps. You're most welcome to come and continue the conversation there, although it might get a bit ribald. We apologise for that in advance. Thank you very much for joining us today. Fabulous.